Hello, everyone. Welcome to Human Tech, a podcast about the intersection between humans and technology. My name is Guthrie. I'm here with Susan.
Hi, Guthrie.
Hi. How you doing today?
I'm good.
Yeah, you're doing well.
I am.
Well,
yeah.
I'm just full of life and energy and
You are?
love for everyone out there. You know, just want to.
Really?
You gotta put love out there in the universe to get love. That's.
This is not usually the way you talk, Guthrie. You feeling okay?
Yeah. You know, I just want to send my appreciation to people who listen to the podcast.
Me too.
It's hard out there because there's so many other good podcasts, and we're basically podcast schmucks, and no one takes us seriously.
Oh, come on.
You know, it's just.
I know. There are some really, really wonderful podcasts out there.
It's like, right? It's like I am. People. If we were in a bigger platform, you know.
What do you mean? What do you mean a bigger platform?
So like, you know, when I look at the people we compete against in podcast world, I mean, you're
talking about just podcasts in general, or podcasts about our topic, or what?
Yeah, sure, or close to our topic. I mean, they're just titans.
Yeah, I know.
Titans.
I know.
And they record all the time, and they have like production teams.
I know they have like.
And people love them and hate them, and you know, and we're just. Yeah,
we're just sitting here talking.
Yeah, which is, you know, it's hard. It's like okay, like think of someone in the NBA who like you don't like as an NBA player, like, okay. And then you play them in basketball. Like, even though they're an NBA player you don't like, it's just not fair because it's just on another level. And then, you know, you'd have to, like, getting compared to like an NBA player, like you just can't compete.
Okay, you start off high energy and full of love, and now you're like depressed and full of self-doubt.
I'm going.
That was a pretty fast
all
fall.
the emotions this morning. Yeah. No. Okay. I'm going back to it. So that to transition, what would you say my persona was?
Did you do that on purpose?
No. Maybe.
Oh.
I don't know.
I would have no idea what your persona is from those comments. We would definitely have to. The interview would have to continue.
Okay, I'll get out of your hair. You
trying to give me a hard time?
No, I'm giving all the listeners a hard time.
Oh, but you just said you loved them and you appreciated them.
Well, that's who you give a hard time to.
Oh, okay. Doesn't make sense at all.
People you appreciate,
so
they can take it.
So as you mentioned, I suggested today that we talk about personas.
Yeah.
Which can be like an old-fashioned, boring topic to some people. I mean, some people except that the good news is that those people have probably turned off the podcast already.
Oh.
Or they didn't even go to the podcast because they saw the title.
Oh.
Maybe we shouldn't put personas in the title. But I want to talk about personas because for a couple of reasons. You know, do you remember when we were in... not too long ago, a month or so ago, we were in Copenhagen for the day.
Yes.
And we were supposed to meet with the group, and we went into the wrong building, and I opened a door and set off all the alarms. Do you remember
that? Yeah. Just some context. We're on the docks. And
well, we were late for the meeting.
No, it's like the docks, and it's like out.
The docks?
Yeah, it was like right on the water.
Yeah.
It was like boats and stuff. And
yeah.
So there's this big building, and we have to get in somewhere. There's no one.
There's no one around.
There's no one around.
There's no obvious door.
There's no obvious door. There's no front desk. There's no place where you drive in
and drop people off. This is like it was like this huge office building that looked deserted.
Yeah. I mean, you could see like some people milling around in like some of the upper floors, but like there was no. And
There's no way in.
So we just kind of wander around. Oh, and we're late to our meeting first.
We're late, yeah.
And so we wander around, and in the back by the marina is an open door.
Yeah, there was like this really nice terrace and with a few tables. There was no one there, but
So
there
we
was a
just
door
Yes,
open
so
to the
we walk-
building.
So we walk into the open door, and it's quite
Yeah.
clear that once we're inside, like, we're not in the place that we need to be.
No.
Like, there's no one here. There's no reception, because we're supposed to, like, meet by some sort of reception desk. I don't
There's
know.
no one there.
There's no one around. So I'm like, all right, let's go out. Let's maybe try, like, the total opposite end of the building, which
Yeah.
was the place we needed to be.
Yeah.
But we were getting weird looks from the security guy, and you left, and then the alarm went off, and I knew it was going to go off, and I was trying to have you
Stop me from opening
yeah,
the door.
because it was
I
like
opened
very
the door.
clear.
I didn't think it was that clear, obviously, or I wouldn't have opened the
Yeah.
door. Anyway, I opened the door, and all the alarms went off, and then the security guy came, and
Was not happy with the dumb Americans who
he
had
was
just,
really not happy. And I showed him that, and then I don't speak any Danish at all. So then I'm trying to communicate to him that who we're looking for. So I showed him like this email with the name. And then he looked at me and he said, "Yes, but now you have set off the security alarm." So I really thought maybe we'd get arrested.
we were trespassing, so
We didn't get arrested.
yeah.
We were actually in the wrong building. We were supposed to be in the building next door, which is kind of connected.
In fairness, the buildings were connected, and there was no like the name of the thing we're supposed to be on was
There
like
was
on
no-
the sign, and it was closest to the sidewalk.
it was really confusing. Anyway, we finally did make. This is a long story. We finally did make it to our meeting, the correct meeting. We found the room and the people, and then when we were there, this was just like I mean, there wasn't even an agenda. We weren't giving a presentation or anything. They have this group meeting once a month or something, and we had been invited to just come and attend, and we were doing it kind of open-ended, Q&A kind of thing. And they asked about personas, which surprised me because you have, I guess we should talk about what a persona is, but maybe a lot of people already know, but you kind of have in the world, if you're talking about the design world or the marketing world, I think you have two basic camps. Maybe you have three. You have people who think personas are really useful and use them. You have people who think personas are really dumb and don't use them. And then you probably have a lot of people who don't even know what the heck you're talking about if you talk about a persona. So I was a little surprised to get that question because personas are something I used to talk about a lot, and I talk about a little bit now and then. But here they wanted to know about personas, and then later on, like after we got back, the person who organized the meeting sent me an email, and he said, "Could you? We really liked your discussion on personas. Could you summarize for us? What you said about personas." So I thought, well, if he's interested in it, maybe people want to talk about personas. So I decided we'd talk about it. Is that all right with you?
I mean, obviously, yeah. Go for it.
So, Guthrie, we'll put you on the spot. How's that?
It's fine. I can handle it.
You think so? Do you have any idea what a persona is?
Yes.
Okay. Do you want to give me in your words what you think it is, or why you think it's useful, or why you don't think it's useful?
So you have to design for someone, and personas help clarify your design audience by you figure out a couple subsets of your audience, and you create a persona of them, of who they are and what they like and what they're trying to do, and then you don't make a ton to simplify, but then you have personas.
Hey, that was not bad.
Thank you.
That was really not bad. I guess you've been hanging out with me for a while. So, I was listening to somebody else's podcast recently, and they were interviewing, I won't say who they were interviewing, but in the design world, or in the design world, in the tech world, this is a fairly well-known person. someone who's written a book or two and given some talks and so on, and has a relatively small tech company that's well known but small. And he was talking about how they, do design at their company and all of that. And he very proudly announced that they do not identify their target audience. They do not have personas. They design for themselves. And that was one of the keys to his success. And I didn't like that. Because, and interestingly, I think his product is totally unusable. Because it does seem to be designed for someone who is, more technical than I am. Although it's not a product for doing technical work. So
I don't think that's necessarily bad if you just then assume that their only customers are like themselves. It's limiting, but it's potentially decent.
But I think, yes, I agree. If your customers are really only like you, then that's okay. But like who? Like the founder of the company? Like the people who work at the company? Like it just, and I can tell you his target audience is not like him. Well, it is, but you're right. He's limiting who would buy his product because, I know used his product.
You're a purist, really. You're kind
of
you're a UX purist.
What's a UX
purist? You like the traditional UX methods and methodologies for the most part.
Because they work, maybe. Yeah. But I think it's really important to. I think personas are useful, and they don't have to be a big deal. And I'm going to talk about the things that I don't think you need to put in them. I think they get a bad rap. I think people maybe don't know how to use them. I think people use them in not very useful ways. But with what you said when you gave the definition, I think it's really important to have a conversation about who you are designing for, to identify the possible subgroups of who you're designing this product for, and to keep that in mind and to have agreement. You are designing for someone. There always will come a time in your process, you're designing something. I don't care what it is. It could be a medical device. It could be a remote control. It can be software. It can be an app. You're in the design process and you have to make a decision. Do you put that button over here or do you put it over there? Do you have this thing? How do you label that? How do you label this? How many buttons do you put on the remote control? You have to make these you got decisions to make. What are you making those decisions based on? And you have to be able to think about one of your target people in your target audience and imagine, okay, they would want that button over here, or they would think that's too many buttons. I mean, if you're not, to me, you just got to do that. And that's why you have personas, so that you can have this conversation amongst your team. I was working on a project once, Guthrie, and I showed up wanting to do my usual UX method stuff that you just alluded to. And so it's one of the first questions I always ask is, who's your target audience? And I had, instead of asking it that way though, I had said, okay, do you have personas? And the guy I was working with said, no, we don't. We don't use personas. We don't believe in personas. And I said, okay, but do you have, someone in mind for your target audience? And he said, oh, yeah. And so I just wrote down, we had a whiteboard there, and I just wrote down what he told me about the target audience. And that was the persona, but I didn't call it that because he didn't want to use personas. But he still had one.
Yeah, no. And I think we've seen that in a number of different places where people are like, I have no idea what a persona is. All we know is that we have this, we like to think about our audience in these terms of groups of people, and we give them characteristics and, right?
But we don't use personas. But I think worse than that, though, are the times when this happens a lot. Like I'll have a first meeting with a team, and I'll say, so, tell me about who your target audience is for this product. And there'll be like, 3 or 4 or 5 people in the room, and they'll kind of look at each other. And then one person will say, well, our main target audience is blah, 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 blah. And then someone will interrupt and say, no, actually, that's not who the target audience is for this product. I mean, so here's the team, and they've been together for, 4 months already, and they cannot come to an agreement to tell me who the target audience is. So that's why you need personas to write it down. So I think that's why I think they're important. But let's talk about what should be in a persona and why I think some people do it wrongly. So how about we talk first about some of the mistakes that I think people make when they're working with personas? Does that sound okay? Do you have any idea? Can I ask you another quiz question?
Yes.
So what do you think is a mistake that people make? They've decided they are going to use personas, and so they go to create them. What's a typical mistake you might see?
I've never been...
You've never done this?
No, I've never done this.
Yeah.
This is not something I've been in the room for. I've seen what comes out of the black box, but
okay. So have you seen something come out of the black box that you think is like a bad idea, like they made a mistake?
No.
All right.
I don't know what you could do that would be bad.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm going to tell you.
Oh yes, please inform us.
So one mistake that people make, because they are following some template they got somewhere, right? That said this is what should be in a persona. And so they have information. So let's back up a second. You said a persona was a description of your target audience, or words to that effect. And a persona is a fictional person. It's not a real person. You decide, okay, our target audience is between the ages of this and this and this and this, and then you say, okay, so let's just make up a representative person. So we have Kate, and she's 30 years old, and blah 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 blah, right? So that a persona is a fictional person that represents the characteristics of your target audience. So one of the mistakes that people make is that when they're describing the characteristics of this fictional person, they use information, variables that are irrelevant to the product they are designing.
And now, can I ask you why?
Why what?
Why would this happen?
Because they got some template somewhere about what a persona is supposed to include. And the persona that they used for their template, like they went online and got a template for persona. You can do that. There's all kinds of persona examples online. And the example they used had a thing where they described, whether the person was married and whether they had children and whether they had pets and this personality characteristics, always interested, Kate's always interested in the latest trends and fashion, right? They just have stuff in there and if that information is important for you to note about your target audience for the product you are designing, then that information should be in there. But you should not have any information in there that isn't relevant to your product. So if you're designing a product for doctors to use when they are ordering medical equipment for their lab, okay? If that's what your product is, you make medical equipment, and the doctors who work in labs can come online and order medical equipment, like that's what you're doing. You do not need to know whether that doctor has a dog. Okay? You just do not need, that's just not important. And you don't need to know that, the doctor's married, or it's just, none of that stuff's important. So the variables you describe in your persona should be variables. Two things. One, they should be variables that will help you design. And they should be variables that show the difference between that persona and another persona you have. So if you have decided that when you're designing, your main group of people, are between the ages of 25 and 45, and that's important to you to note that. And there's another group of people, though, that also use your product that are older, and you think that the age difference is important, or maybe maybe it's an income difference, or maybe it's that there's some this group over here is very experienced with doing ordering these kinds of products online, but then we also have the subset of people who aren't, or this group of people are current customers. But we also want to make sure we're doing, we have a subset of people who are not current customers. So if there's a variable that distinguishes one of your personas from another persona that's important for you in terms of design, that's what needs to be in your persona. You want that information. So that you can have anything in your persona. You can have whether they have pets and whether they have children. And that, and how old they are and how much money they make and what language they speak and how much education they have. I mean, any of that stuff is fine if that's important to the design of your product and or it differentiates one persona from another. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes tons of sense, and I mean the whole point of personas, correct me if I'm wrong, is to just simplify things. And so there's no point making your simplification process overly complex.
Well, the whole point of personas is to bring out is to make concrete and conscious the unconscious assumptions you and your team members have about who the target audience is. What happens is if you don't, by creating the personas and discussing it with each other, you bring out into the open the assumptions you have when you're designing that you don't realize you have. So, you're sitting there and making these design decisions, and if you care about the people who are going to be using the product, you are trying to make decisions. You're trying to make design decisions that you think your target audience will find usable and engaging. But if you don't bring out into the open who that target audience is and discuss it and come to agreement on it, what you often have, and I've seen this happen, you have one team members making design decisions based on their assumptions, and their assumptions are different from another team member. And then you have different screens that in pages and the app that don't make sense together, and that's because, I thought it was for our current customers who have done this before, and you thought it was for new customers who've never done it. And so we made different decisions, and now our different pages don't mesh. So it's really important that you make this, bring all the stuff out in the open, discuss it, come to agreement on it. So that's one of the errors I see, is that people just put all kinds of stuff in there that isn't relevant. And then, of course, anyone else who looks at it goes, why do you have the pets in there? And then they just don't understand. They just think this is a stupid exercise to come up with personas because it has all this stuff in it that isn't important.
Yeah, no. So and well, hey, it's like, I think that's like a lot of UX stuff, is that people who are not looking at the longer view, because it's really, a lot of stuff is, it helps in the gray areas. When you're trying to come up to something, it shapes the things you come up with, but it's not, it's not like code, which is, I literally need this thing so that my website
this particular thing
displays,
happens.
right?
Yeah.
So it's and like a lot of stuff that's soft power or soft skills, or it's hard to see the value in it at the time. And I think Personas
it comes out later.
Yeah, Personas is definitely one of those.
When you don't have them and you go
and
awry.
It's hard, and it makes you make. I mean, it's possible too that like okay, so I'm trying to think of a good example, of like an app that thinks it's like 7 different things.
Yeah.
It's like, maybe
you mean it's doing too much.
Yeah. Maybe like the new Skype rebrand, right?
Yeah.
So Skype for forever was basically a instant messenger platform.
Yeah.
But then it also was going to be your phone because you could do like phone calls to like real phones.
Yeah.
But also then it was for business. And also then it was like, oh, like call your grandmother, right? Like we'll do FaceTime, not FaceTime, but like face-to-face communication and video calling, and game with your friends. But now they redid the app and there's like, and it's Snapchat and also Instagram because you can do like the moments, where it's like a couple seconds every day, and you have like it's like friends and they have stickers. So like, but then there's Skype for Business, which is what used to be Link, which is a different thing. It's like, so the product itself, the team itself, doesn't actually know. It's like there's no. It's not like if you're give me a product. Give me a company that only makes like one thing. That's well known for like they have like a couple items, but they don't do a whole lot.
I don't know. Like Hootsuite.
Okay, sure. So what Hootsuite does, they make one thing. It's basically to track your social media presence across different accounts.
Right.
And that's what we use.
What
and
they do.
What a lot of people do. And like that's what they do. They know what they do.
Yeah.
They only do one thing. It's that. They try to do it really well. They like it's like a very focused.
Yes.
So like internally, they're so it's hard enough to do personas when the whole kind of company is probably aligned on their mission and who their audience is. And I think it's twice as hard if the company is not perhaps aligned.
You see,
company-wide.
and I have another theory about this.
Shoot.
Which is another reason people don't want to do personas. Because if they do personas, there's lots of things they have to face that they would rather not face. Like,
I think that's true for a lot of UX stuff. Or just a lot of, it's right. Like I don't want to make decisions.
We actually don't know who our target audience is.
Yeah.
And to go find out is, way too much work. And so if we don't have personas, if we just ignore that, we don't ever have to address the real issue, which is, we don't know who we should be designing for. I think you're right. I think a lot of reason that people don't like UX work. Now they'll tell you because it's a waste of time and it's unnecessary, but I'm biased. I think a lot of the reason people don't want to do it is it raises all these uncomfortable questions for which they don't have answers, which I guess they think isn't important, but or maybe they just don't want to admit that they don't have the answers. So, all right. So that's one mistake. People put in unimportant variables that don't really have to do with their product.
Right.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
All right, here's another one. Another mistake they make is they use the personas from another project. There was this other project 2 years ago that had personas, so we'll just use those because they're already made. Why reinvent the wheel, right? So what's the problem with that?
Well, an apple is not an orange.
What does that mean?
It means an apple is not an orange. I don't know. I actually think that's pretty straightforward.
You mean that the target audience might be different?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You really have to have it for your target. Now, the target audience might be the same, so you could certainly start there, right? You could take a look at the personas that somebody else in the company have for another project and see if any of it is relevant, right? You could start there, but you don't want to just use those as is. All right, another one another mistake, and this is quite a common mistake. I was working with a client, and they were designing a new, they were redesigning like some internal apps, like basically their intranet, which nobody ever cares about, but like their HR says, people want to go on.
It's an intranet.
Check their benefits and blah 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 blah. Right?
It's an intranet.
Yeah, intranet. And so they wanted to come up with personas before they did the redesign, and so they based the personas on people's job roles.
Yeah.
And this was this is a very large medical, very large, well-known, I won't use their name, medical clinic. So, they had doctors and nurses and receptionists and...
It's a lot going on.
Yeah, but so that's what their personas for the intranet was based on. They had a persona for the doctor and a persona for a nurse and a persona for an admin and right?
Yeah.
So I told them that was a bad idea. Do you know why I told them that was a bad idea?
Why?
Well, I'm asking, do you know?
No, I actually don't.
Because when you have different personas, the different personas, this whole idea of having different personas is because if the different groupings mean that these people would use the product differently, would have different needs, would have a different point of view. So the question was, if the doctor is going to go check on how much vacation he has left, is that any different than the nurse checking or the admin checking? Like, do they have different, like...
Well, that's when things get complicated, right? Because obviously it is different, but that's why they have a complicated product.
Why is it different? Why is it different if a doctor's checking to see how much vacation she has from a nurse?
Different people with different priorities.
When it comes to the intranet, maybe, but they weren't sure of that. They just assumed that job role would be the best way to do it. So, there are other things that were as important or more important. For instance, are you new to the clinic? Have you been using the existing intranet for 10 years and you're used to the way it's done, versus you're relatively new and you've never really used the intranet? Like, maybe that's more important than whether you're a doctor or a nurse. So I had to get them to stop, because they were just starting to, basically they were just taking the HR job descriptions and turning that into personas. And I had to say, whoa, is that really what you want to do? So, we kind of stopped that process and took a look at what when someone was using the intranet, what were the biggest differences amongst them. And it wasn't job role. So we came up with different personas.
Yeah, so it's possible to figure things out.
Yeah, you just gotta take the time to do it. All right, so then another struggle that people have is they say, how can we be sure that this is accurate, right? So we make up these personas,
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we're just making it up. Like, maybe it's not based on reality. So I like to say things like, well, having some personas that you think are accurate is better than no personas at all. I'd still rather, because at least you are, as I said before, bringing those unconscious assumptions to the light of day.
Right.
obviously, well, maybe not obviously, it's better to go to verify your personas, to say, okay, here's what I think they are, but maybe we better go check. And you can do that. So, I mean, you can just, so let's say you come up with 2 personas. We think we have, people, let's say you're developing an app to help people find, this is a real estate app. It's for people to find the right property for them in the Chicago area. Okay?
Right.
And, you decide, I think our main personas are going to be people who have done this before. They've bought real estate. They know what they're doing. They understand the process. They know what points means. They know how to go about getting a mortgage. And so they're experienced real estate buyers. And then we have the people that this is their first time they're going through this.
Yeah.
And we're going to, let's just say that they come up with those personas and they decide those are the important personas. And then they even describe, okay, so we're going to say that the new home buyers are like this and the experienced ones are like that. And they make their personas. And then they decide they want to verify it. So they just, go interview people, go find people who are in the market to buy a house or a condo and see if they fit your personas, right? Go get some data, interview people, and decide whether, hey, we have the ages wrong a little bit, or, hey, there weren't as many differences between them as we thought. Maybe we just have one persona. Maybe we don't need like 2 or 3 or 4.
Yeah.
So you can verify your personas. That's possible to do.
That sounds useful.
Yeah.
Do question?
Yeah.
Do you think does anyone have time for personas in today's rough and tumble world?
Well, the quick answer is no, they don't think they do. But if you don't, if you make bad design decisions and you have to correct that later, that's not good use of time either. Right? That's what would be my answer. Look, you don't have to have fancy official personas with photos and all of that formatted beautifully. Take out a piece of paper and write down the assumptions you have about who you're designing for. It will take you could take 30 seconds.
Yeah.
I would be thrilled.
Thrilled.
I would be thrilled. Tape it on the wall. And every time you're designing, look at it and remember who you're designing for. And then if you're in a team meeting and the team's not agreeing on some design aspect, bring out the piece of paper and say, I just want to remind you, here's who we're designing for. It would take all of 1 minute. 1 minute. So I don't buy the we don't have time. I don't buy it.
Put your foot down. Take a stand. For UX.
Yeah, come on.
Hey.
All right, so one other thing I want to mention, which makes things murky that no one likes to talk about. See, this is, UX people, we're really popular. Nobody likes to talk to us. Nobody wants to hear what we have to say. It's true. All we do is ask questions and shine a light on all the murky holes and messes that
it's a lot like the legal side of things,
Really?
Like it's the worst problems in society that no one wants to deal with.
Really?
Yep. Because if they could deal with it, you wouldn't ever get to the court system. So it's just the worst of the worst that people can't resolve their differences.
Yeah, so they'd rather not. So
well, but there has to be a winner and a loser for society to continue.
Well, that's a little different than personas and UX work, isn't it?
All I'm saying is that it's like wherever the problems are, right? Like everything is just it's like the it's like a problem.
Yeah.
You know, kind of in a lot of way that like it exposes the problems.
It exposes the
You have
problems.
to deal with your problems.
And nobody wants the problems
No
exposed.
one wants to deal with problems.
They just want everything to be neat and tidy and easy.
Except for tax law. Tax law is the different goal because you're just like, how can I pay less taxes on this yacht? So it's, you know, it's a little nicer.
You know, I've never had that problem.
Yeah.
Of how to pay less taxes on my yacht. I don't have a yacht. All right. So the other messy thing that no one wants to deal with that I think you should try and address in your personas are not just demographics. See, a lot of people deal with demographics. Where does someone work? How old are they? How much money do they make? And then, you know, specifics like have they used this product before? But I think often, it's also important to know the psychographics, behavior graphics. You know, what do we know about the person? You know, are they someone? You know, this group, this persona describes people who, they don't even like the idea of insurance, and you know, we're designing a software so that people can get insurance quotes. And there's this group of people out there that really would rather not ever have to buy insurance. They don't like spending money on it. They don't like thinking about things going wrong. And, you know, so they're just avoiding us. You know, they have to have insurance on their home, but they really hate the whole idea of it, you know, versus maybe the people who, you know, they like to face facts. They like to have their ducks in a row. They in fact are interested in insurance and want to make sure they have the best policy or the most efficient policy. So, you know, sometimes there's that psychographic element, right?
Psychographic.
Yeah, about how do people feel about this? What are they afraid of? What are they, what are the emotions and feelings behind their interaction with this kind of product and service?
Right.
And I think sometimes, not always, but again, it always depends on your product. That's important. That could be important. If it's not important, don't put it in your persona. But if it's important, you gotta go there, you know, because otherwise, again, when you're designing, you know, are you just going to ignore the fact that your most important target audience group actually would rather not do anything that you know, your product is about, but they have to? Right. Yeah, shopping for health insurance. Like, I can tell you right now, I hate it. I hate shopping for health insurance. It just makes me mad and frustrated, and you know. Well,
but it's especially bad because we don't have that friendly like HR department giving us that sweet health insurance.
No, we're out there, you know, in the marketplace trying to find something. For me, because I'm a little bit older than you, rolling my eyes, you know, it costs more than a new car. Yeah, like this is the last thing I want to do is go online and get health insurance quotes, but I have to do it every year. And I think, you know, if they knew and that I hated it, maybe they'd make some different design decisions. They really aren't designing for me, I can tell you that right now. But yeah, so I think the feelings that someone has about the product or service, and I think that could be an important criteria. So let's see. I think I got one more, and then maybe these are all the things people do wrong. I maybe have one more. Okay. And one more is that they have too many personas. Like I was on one project. I showed up. I said, "You guys have personas?" They said yes. I got real excited.
Yeah.
21.
21 what?
Different personas.
Sounds like too many.
It's way too many because, and they really might have had 21 different. It's possible that you could have 21 different subgroups in your target audience. It's very possible. But you can't, but it's not going to be useful that way. So you need a set of personas where you can keep them pretty much all in memory at the same time, which means like 3 at the most. I had one client who I showed up, they had like, a different client, they had like 20 something, and we got it down to 5. And even that was a lot, but we were able to get it down to 5. So you got to have like, 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 would be really unusual, but you can't have more than that because you can't keep them all in mind. And typically what happens when you have, when I show up and you have 14 of them or something, you're doing the thing like the clinic did where it's divided by job role. You haven't really analyzed whether there's really any differences between these people in any significant way.
Yeah.
So typically you're using something like job role or something else, and when you look at it, it's like, well, these guys are pretty much the same. Let's combine them, and these guys are pretty much the same. Let's combine them.
Yeah. So if you had, what was the range again?
You mean how many to have?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5 at the most.
Okay.
Someone could talk me into 7, but that would be really, really unusual. Never more than that. Never, never, never. And if you really have more than that, you know what? You just have to decide that we know we have more than that, but these are the most important 7, the most important 5 to design for. Because you just can't design, that's just, you can't be making design decisions and keeping in mind that, all right, do we have these 5, keeping in mind that we have 5 different types of people we have to design this for is bad enough. You couldn't do it with 21. You wouldn't use them, or you would use 1 or 2 and ignore the rest. So why go through all that work?
Right.
If you're not going to use them. So
right.
Yeah. So you just got to, and you do have to decide. If you have more than one, which is very typical. Most projects I've worked on, there's more than one persona that's important and distinct. There's 2, maybe 3. That's typical. Every now and then there's just one, but that's unusual. But you have to decide if you have more than one, which one, when push comes to shove, is the most important. Because I'm designing this particular page in my app, and if I'm designing it for this person, I should call the button this, and if I'm designing it for that person, I should call the button that. Or if I'm designing it for this person, then this information should come first, but if I'm designing it for that person, this other information should come first, and I have to decide. So you have to know in situations like that who takes priority. So you got to make that call too. Yeah, all the messy decisions no one wants to make, and that's why people don't like personas. But I know there are some people out there that like them. I'm really curious after people listen to this episode if they want to, send us a message and say, I like personas, I hate personas.
So if you wanted to learn more about personas, what would your next steps be?
There's if you want to learn more about personas, I have a couple of next steps for you. I have I guess I would say I have two possible best next steps. I think. Can I look on my bookshelf? Can I turn my chair and make
Go ahead.
creaky
Yes.
chair noises?
Everyone understands that you'll be.
I'm making creaky chair noises here. I'm looking. Just give me a second because I had this book out yesterday, and I was looking at it. All right, hold on a second. You can hear me like doing things and making noise here. While I'm looking for this book, Guthrie, one of the places they can go and get information is we have a course on user research. So while I'm looking for the book, why don't you tell them how they can check out that course? Because that course has a lot of information on personas.
So you can go to courses.theteamw.com, and under there's this section called UX courses. You go in there, and you can check them all out. There's one, like she said, on personas.
Well, there's a course on user research.
Oh, it's entitled user research. It has a section in it called personas.
It has a big section on personas, so it's called user research.
But it is called user research. So go check it out. I think it's pretty cool.
All right, Guthrie, really? I had this book out yesterday. What did I do with it?
Maybe it's still out. What is it? What book is it?
It's Leah Bewley's book called A UX Team of One. Yeah, I had it out, and then I must have put it back. And I just wanted to check that I'm pretty sure that she has a section in there on personas, because it's a great book, and I think it's a really weird title for the book, because you don't have to be a UX team of one. Oh, I found it finally. Wow. Okay, The User Experience Team of One by Leah Bewley. It's published by Rosenfeld. And let's see if she's got... let's see. Right, after all this, then she won't have anything about personas, and then I will be totally wrong. So let's see if she does. I'm going to look in the back. Maybe she... Yeah, it would be funny if she says, oh... Whatever you do, don't use personas. No, I see a couple. There's only a couple of pages in here. Let's see if she says they're horrible. Yeah, she's got them in there. I really like this book, and I think it works even if you're a user experience team of 27, so or any other number. So I don't know why she calls it a user experience team of one, but maybe because it's basically a UX process, but it's very streamlined. It's like, okay, you don't have a lot of time and you have to do this all yourself. You don't have a team of 20 people.
Right.
How can you do this efficiently and it still be useful? And I think it's a great book. I recommend that one. So that would be another resource I would probably recommend. There's lots of others, but those are probably the two I would say.
Okay, cool.
So, Guthrie, if people want to reach us and tell us what they think about personas, what should they do?
They should email info@theteamw.com.
Yeah. And there you have it. And I'd also like to hear if people, if there's any other UX type. I mean, we talk about a lot of stuff. We talk about behavioral science, and we go all over the board. But if there's any more UX things that people would like to hear about, let us know. I'm always happy to talk about UX stuff.
Yeah, I know you are. So, I like UX things as well, kind of, mostly.
Yeah.
Okay, everyone. Thank you all so much for listening, and
yeah.
I hope you are enjoying things, and you hope you're enjoying the summer.
Yeah. You talking about me or our audience?
Our audience.
Yeah. I hope they are too. I live in Wisconsin, so we really appreciate summer because it's brief and it's really different than winter. All right, Guthrie, thanks very much.
I'll talk
Bye,
to you
everyone.
Later. Bye.